How do you manage pivoting when an original idea is put to the test, but then the data shows that it's actually not the right move? Mm. Oh wow, that's usually that's refreshing to hear because so many people are stuck that it has to be this way. It's like no, as long as the final goal gets achieved. Oh, that's awesome. I love, very refreshing to hear. Hello everyone and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo and my guest here today is Ada Chen, who is the founder and CEO of MyMonthly. Ada, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Joao. I'm so excited to be here, chat with you a little bit more about MyMonthly, and have more conversations like this.
Amazing. Why don't we start off with you telling everyone a little bit more about MyMonthly? I think it's such an interesting concept, and it's also a little bit different than a lot of the businesses I've been speaking with. One, because we'll dive into it at the stage of the company right now, but also just in the niche itself. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about you guys?
Of course. MyMonthly is actually the first ever period app that's designed for couples. So not only is it for women to learn more about their bodies, but it's also for their partner, especially if it's opposite sex partners, to understand more about how to be supportive, actionable items, how to be more empathetic, and just be better partners in a relationship and have the burden of menstruating and all of that not just be on one person.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think as I'll try to speak for all men here that that have to deal with a lot of things that we don't fully understand at times. So it's so interesting that that there's so much education out there. There's so many things that can happen, but
Right.
having something that's dedicated, that there's so many things that can help the education process there, but having something that's really dedicated to understanding each other is so cool. And tell me a little bit more about what brought you to founding the company and actually creating this entire thing.
I actually designed the app for my boyfriend because being in my first serious relationship and having someone really be with me 24/7, my cycle is definitely a big part of it. And as women know, our moods and our hormones can fluctuate with our cycle. And that's something we cannot control at all. So it's good for my boyfriend to have more insight on that. And with him not really having that insight in the first place and not having a tool like that out there where we can communicate, find common ground, and have almost a authority voice tell him what's going on with my body. It doesn't feel like it's irrational. It's very
Mm-hmm.
much something that is part of hormonal health, part of reproductive health. And I decided to create this for him. And
Mm-hmm.
after creating a prototype and just planning out my demo and understanding that this is very much for me and for my partner. As I talked about it more with my friends, it seems like I had a wider audience and that
Yeah.
would be something that other people wanted for their boyfriends too.
Mm-hmm. And then you started just going from there, having those conversations, trying to push it out to more people, and then
Yes.
the word started to spread. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Pretty
Yeah, that's
organic.
awesome. Yeah, and it's cool because I want to talk about a lot of the things that we spoke in our first conversation.
Yeah.
One, the app being completely free right now for everyone, so we'll dive into that. But I
Yes.
also wanted to talk about actually, let's dive into that first, and then we'll go into everything else. So tell me a little bit more about the stage that the company is in. Why is the app free for everyone? Usually if it's free, then the company doesn't make any money. How does that make any sense? So tell everyone a little bit more about what you guys are going through, and I guess maybe touch on a little bit of the plan for the company's growth, and then we'll dive into a lot more of that later as well.
Okay. Well, I think it would be helpful to say that I am a product designer. That's what I studied for my undergrad at Parsons, and then that's what I studied again for my master's at Brown and
Mm-hmm.
Christie. So with that being my starting point, it's a lot of iterations, and the way we
Mm-hmm.
think in product design is very much designing for our user, and we only grow through user feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to releasing the app, which we just did back in December, we only wanted feedback. So very, very brutal, honest feedback. What's working, what's not, what should we take out, what should we add on?
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't make sense to me to have it be a paid app right from the get-go because we want to gain that feedback organically without needing to pay for ads, without wanting to invite people on. So right now and up until towards the end of the year, the app will stay free. So if you want to use it, it's on the App Store, My Monthly, and it's completely free. We just want to hear your honest feedback.
Amazing. And it's so great because in one side, if you look at it from a purely, I guess, business revenue standpoint, it's like, oh my God, we want to leverage that as much as possible, but
Yeah.
that's not happening. But on the other side is you are front loading so much of that feedback. Whereas if there was a paid option or a paid obstacle, it would be so much friction that gets created. And then you don't get that important feedback that allows you to then have the proper foundations for when the app is actually pushed through. So I find it such an interesting and a great approach to be able to front load a lot of that and really get that honest feedback in the way that you would want as well. So thank you for sharing that. And then I also wanted to ask you, tell me a little bit more about the dynamics of how the app actually works. Is it really a situation in which it's very personalized to each couple, each woman's different cycle? Talk to me a little bit more about that and how as a couple who uses it on a day-to-day basis, it maybe gives you some guidance or how it all works.
It is a dual portal app. So both you and your partner can download the app and use it together. So as a primary user, which is the person who menstruates, they download the app, they have a pairing code that they can share with their partner or whoever they want to track with. That person downloads the app, enters the codes, then you're on one cycle. And when it's one cycle, definitely you would think, okay, it's based on the female cycle or the menstruator cycle. But for us, we try to be empathetic towards people who don't menstruate too, because even like yourself, it's hard to navigate. It's hard to fully understand if you don't experience the same thing. And with that, we have it so that you both track your moods, you both track different settings, like how you're feeling on certain days, but
Mm.
you also get tips and hints and tricks on how to be more helpful depending on the phase of the cycle the primary user is on. So if you're experiencing certain cravings that is reoccurring, if you're feeling down a few of the days in a month, that's always still reoccurring. Those are patterns that we can spot with algorithm and it's just
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
engineers. And that way we will make sure that we alert the partner that these are the days that's going to be a little bit difficult. You're more supports. Can you pick up the slack a little bit? Can you help her out in a certain way when it comes to if you live together, house chores, certain
Sure.
savings? So it's practical feedback that feeds into your lives and relationships and not just around cycle or menstrual health because it
Mm-hmm.
really impacts every part of our life and in return, our partner's life.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's interesting. So it sounds to me that as they are both using the app, there's a lot of input that happens from each of the partners.
Yes.
And then the data starts to really understand and learn, okay, this is when this is happening, this is when that's happening. And then
Yes.
when the next cycle comes through, then it's like, hey, here's a heads up of what happened last time. This is probably is going to happen again, or this is what is likely the situation that you're going to have to deal with
Right.
on both ends of the spectrum. So as the data gets fed into the app, then it starts to learn on each of the specific couples' data. It's not like a general thing that applies to everyone.
No, it is not. It is
Okay.
very much feedback driven. So we take in what you're
Mhm.
inputting, and each person's different. So we really keep that in mind. And each cycle is different, and it looks very different for each person. So we definitely tailor all of our output with that.
Amazing. Very, very cool. Ada, why don't we shift the conversation a little bit more now on the business itself,
Okay.
on the growth of the company, really understanding how you're thinking about getting this into, I guess, not into the market because it's already in the market, but you know what I mean, about actually implementing call it the official launch. And tell me a little bit more on what's going through your mind as you are in these final stages by before the end of the year when you're actually going to have that switch onto the company's model.
I think right now we've gained a lot of valuable feedback and we're
Mm-hmm,
actually working on version 2. We're approaching our second year in business very soon
mm-hmm.
and approaching 7 months releasing on the App Store. So we're now at 1,000 active users without any ads. This is fully organic, which we really appreciate.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Before
congrats.
we turn on monetization, we've worked a lot on version 2. So when
Mm-hmm,
version 2 comes out in October, that's when I'm going to feel a lot more confident. My team's going to feel a lot more confident to have this really be a product that we can monetize off of. Because based on the feedback we've had in the first, let's say, 6 months, it's already been enough for us to work on a new version that is going to be so much more helpful for both
mm-hmm,
partners
mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
it's going to speak to not only your love languages, it's going to speak to how you gain that micro learning knowledge each day, how you come
Mhm.
back to the app, how it can help you with your connection. And now we actually feel 100% confident that this is helpful for any relationship of any form. And on that, we're actually also releasing the same, or we call it the dual primary user mode, which means
Mhm.
both menstruate. You can also use the app. And that's a big deal for us as well because we're a big ally team and we want to be supportive of different kinds of couples out there. So having this dual primary partner mode is also going to come out this year.
Interesting. Many exciting things. And I actually, I kind of lied to you because as you said that, one question popped into my mind
Yeah.
about the previous, I guess, engagement that we were having. So I'm going to dive into that and then we'll go back to the company's growth. I'm interested to hear, I'm interested to hear what piece of feedback you've been hearing from the couples that has been, call it the most common pattern, whatever I guess you guys like to label it as, that couples are really finding out this is the part that we're getting the most value from. What is that? I'm curious to hear that.
We hear a lot. There's two things.
Mhm.
The first one is that couples use the diary feature a lot. And this is one of
Okay.
those features as a designer, it was like a nice to have. We threw it in there because we were like, maybe people want to take a note of how they're feeling that day.
Sure.
Then now it's become our most prominent couple feature because
Wow.
all the couples really like to go back to that every single day. It's like a mindful mindset journal, and people like to write down something they're grateful for their
Hmm.
partner, which is really good for healthy communication. That was one feature that we just didn't expect at all.
Wow.
And the second thing is that from opposite sex partners, especially boyfriends, husbands, etc., we hear a lot of, what do I get out of this?
Hmm.
And my team being primarily women, it's a mindset that maybe is very foreign to us. We thought,
Okay.
well, happy wife, happy life. What do you
Duh.
the heck? And no, but we still now understand better that to attract our second half of our users, we have to understand their love language and how they're perceiving this whole transaction. And
Hmm.
it's totally okay. We're just wired maybe a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And if they
Maybe a
don't,
lot differently sometimes. Yeah.
yes. And if you don't menstruate, maybe you're thinking, okay, this is an extra chore. So if you're getting me to use this, I need to get something out of it. And we're implementing more gamification models in it so that there is more of that reward and mental and cognitive like rewards that you get based on using the app. So that's all not only through knowledge quizzes or love language quizzes, it's also through having reward when you complete a certain task, finish a certain treat, and finish a streak of
Hmm.
quizzes. So that's something that's now more helpful when it reinforces that positive feedback.
No, that's cool. That's cool to hear because like the first thing that came to mind for me is I can see how women who are using the app can get really the value, and then they want their partners to partake in it. It's like,
Yes.
please do this thing so you can understand this more. But my first reaction is going to be there's going to be a huge knowledge gap of how to actually call it make this work. So it's interesting to hear that that's been the one the notes part as well, but also really trying to get the the non-menstruating part of the couple to really get to the point of okay, this is how it's going to benefit
Yes.
me, but not only me, the relationship overall and the engagement. So that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I like that a lot. And then diving into back the other thing, the company itself. Tell me about some challenges that you guys face because as you mentioned in the phase that you are of the company, there's always going to be one cash can be an issue as
Oh,
opposed
it's
because of the non-monetization aspect of it right now. But aside from that, I think that can be a clear cut thing for a lot of the companies that are for a lot of startup companies. Tell me about some of the things internally, maybe externally, trying to get the feedback or have the internal operations or putting AI systems. What are some of the challenges that you're finding are the biggest things that can slow down the process of growth that you guys are trying to stay on?
iteration. I think the biggest obstacle is always iteration. There's always so many things we want to change, and I have to make the executive decision to push a build when I think it's ready enough to get feedback. I think a lot of my team sometimes, especially when it comes to designers, we can get attached to our design. want to feel like it's perfect before we release it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to business, we don't have that time, or do we have that money? So we
Yeah.
have to release something
Mm-hmm.
before it's 100%. I did read that if you feel like your design is perfect, then you're releasing it too late. So we have to just keep pushing it and get feedback. Even if it's not so good, at least we're learning from it. And in December, that's what we had to do. And I'm really grateful we did that, because the last 6 months, we learned so much more than if we had kept the iteration process going for 6 months before releasing it now. And when it comes to cash flow, that's definitely always a thing on my mind is, should I conserve the cash for marketing when we do release for monetization, or should I continue building and growing the product side?
Mm-hmm.
One of the debates I had only recently was releasing our Android model, or starting our Android build. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have an Android version that's available yet. And that's because, based on our market research, a majority of our target users are iOS users.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to a partner app, it's very possible that one person is an iOS user, like the primary user, but their partner could be an Android user.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have recently decided to start to build, and based on so much feedback that we're getting on a weekly basis, we've started the Android build to release for Google Store as well.
Interesting. So now it's just trying to brainstorm the right thing to prioritize on, and what will be the, I guess, the highest leverage activity for the company. Does that sound about right?
Yes, it does.
Interesting. And tell me, because as you're explaining the company to me, and of course you have much more knowledge than I do because you are the founder, but there are so many different ideas just from I guess the knowledge and experience that I have working with companies doing a lot of marketing. That could work really well. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think are some of the, and you don't have to give me your whole strategy that you're going to be pushing out here, but what do you think are going to be some of the most pivotal, important aspects of that launch when you guys do come around to it?
Social media marketing. I think that's always the biggest one for a smaller company. I definitely know that social media is where our target user is at. So pushing for that is where it's going to be. And of course, creator marketing. The creator
Yeah,
economy is so vast and fast growing that we would probably start with smaller creators who we actually have a growing list where we see content regarding couples, relationships, menstruation,
sure. Yeah.
and different. I guess there's a lot of menstrual diseases that are invisible, and some creators
Mhm.
care more about that. And those are the creators we would like to prioritize when it comes to having test out our app, trying it
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and get that organic feedback from them too.
Yeah, and that's so cool because that's one of the first like that popped into my mind as well. Like you just see different creators who are
Yeah.
in the relationship space, because then you really are going to start to get that one volume coming in, but then even more feedback, even everything else, more of the things that you need to start implementing and improving, and
Yes.
possibly giving you the data that you want for the Android and all these different things, which is pretty cool. And I want to add something here, but I don't want to say it out of ignorance. So out of curiosity, how familiar are you with like pay traffic and all those things as well? How all that works in the back end?
I am pretty familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have
No, awesome.
more wisdom, please share it with me.
No, yeah. No, I wanted to say one thing because so many there I mean, one, you already know that that would be a huge tool for you guys, so I don't even have to convince you there. But one of the things that I find so cool about like call it TikTok, Instagram, and social media is that oftentimes if something is so good that organically it goes, call it go viral, blows it up, whatever term you want to use it, then as soon as there's going to be a certain volume that you put out for yourself, for the company, and also the creators coming through. One, two, three out of 100 will always really stand out. But then leveraging that, one that went viral, and if it went viral organically, putting money behind it, oh, buddy, that's where really the scales comes from. So I find that it's such an exciting thing because you can make things work with such a I guess call it a lower amount of cash flow. But when you do push the cash behind it, oh man, it went through organically, putting it like shoving it in front of people's faces even more so. So I find that really cool. And it sounds like that's what you guys are striving for in any case.
Yes, absolutely. I think we definitely want to, based on our brand as well, if you see our website, our Instagram, brand identity is a huge, huge, huge portion of how we operate. And we have great visuals, great designers on the team. And when it comes to content as well, we normally try to create community. And of course, if we can go viral, that'd be amazing. But
Yeah.
when it comes to creating, we try to steer away from only creating viral content that doesn't work for us, but staying with something that's true to our message and is consistent. That one actually would convert better for us, is what we've seen when it comes to
Mm,
downloads, versus being on a trend or getting on a trend
yeah.
and people aren't quite sure what the correlation is between the product and the trend.
Yeah. A confused mind always says no.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So definitely don't confuse people. Make sure it's very, very clear, all those things. But it's so cool. It's interesting because I think what you guys have is something that has a huge demand that is unknown. Like there's an unaware demand for it, but as soon as people are aware that this is something that exists out there for them, it's like, oh, this is one. I know that the I'll call it peer pressure that comes from the from the girls in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like you are going to get this app. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get the app.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's even if it does start that way, the value that comes from it on the back end is so huge. So it's really, really cool. So thank you for sharing all that. I have a couple of final questions here for you, Ada. And I say a couple because I'll start with one and then I'll go on to the final one that I've been asking everybody. Actually, we'll start with that. I'm going all over the place here. But let's say you had a magic wand, Ada. And I know even though you guys are at an earlier stage for the company, the answer might be different than what most people have been answering. But let's say you had a magic wand and you could just solve one challenge within the company that would allow you to hit all your goals, maybe revenue goals, client acquisition goals, other ambitions that you have. Wave that wand, solve one thing. What's the one thing you'd like to solve?
That is such a good question and also a very hard one. I wish I had more wishes. Uh,
Yeah, no, just one.
but I think I would want to solve our message direct to consumer when it comes to social media. So that is just having that core message be packaged really well. That's probably what I would want to solve the most. I think being so close to the business, my whole team being so close to the business, sometimes it's hard to choose what that message is. And it might be clear from an external perspective. I think if we can get that message really, really solid, even though it's self-explanatory, but like you said, we're solving a demand that's new, right? Because it's a new product and a new concept. I would love to have that message be packaged really well, that it is so clear and through social media, especially.
Awesome. Very, very cool. I'll after we get off the recording, I'll send you some resources on that as well that I think are really, really helpful when it comes to an unsophisticated market, a market that, because you guys are pretty much, are you familiar with the book Blue Ocean Strategy?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Definitely recommend reading that book.
Okay.
And you guys, as a very high level overview, blue ocean means you guys are pretty much the only one in the space. Red ocean means it's pretty overcrowded. You guys are pretty much in a blue ocean where you get to dictate how things actually happen. So it's really, really cool to be in that position. And then we'll talk about that later as well. But my final question here for you is actually not a question from me. It's a question from my last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were.
Okay.
So here's the question. Are you ready for it?
Yes, I am.
This is an interesting one because I think it's going to be a different answer just because of where you guys are at in business, but I think it still really applies because of so many different things you're doing internally. So here it is. How do you manage pivoting when an original idea is put to the test, but then the data shows that it's actually not the right move?
Oh, I'm really good about that. I think I'm really good about this one. I very early on, I decided as a founder, I'm the kind of person that sticks really rigid to a vision, but I am not rigid at all to how I get there. So the goal is to have couples reach a common ground and have menstruation and menstrual health not be one person's burden. But how I get there, it can be any way possible. So if one day we're not an app, I'm open to that too.
Oh, wow. That's usually that's refreshing to hear because so many people are stuck that, oh, it has to be this way. It's like, no, as long as the final goal gets achieved. Oh, that's awesome. I love, very refreshing to hear.
I'm super glad that was the question because I was like, you know what? This is actually, we've changed how we look. We've changed how we want to operate. multiple times. We take out features, put in features all the times. And the app portion of it is just because it's so accessible and we can
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
free. If it's a product physical, we can't really choose to make it free. There's so much upfront cost. So this is our easiest way to get to people now. But in the future, if that changes and we write a book, and I'm happy with that too.
No, that's awesome. And that's awesome because I think a huge aspect of success as well is how adaptable you are
Mhm.
to not what you want, but what the market wants.
Yeah.
So it's very, very nice to hear that you are also on that same boat and really just making sure that the goal gets accomplished as opposed to the way of achieving that goal. So, Ada, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been incredible. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you and, of course, a little bit more about MyMonthly?
Of course, if you follow our Instagram at my_monthly, we post a ton of content over there, educational, fun, and we host events all over the city in New York. And for the app, please download My Monthly on the App Store and let us know how you feel about the app, comments, updates, suggestions. Let us know. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I will leave everything down below here if you want to check that out. If you're still listening to this conversation, you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you on the next episode. Ada, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ro.